picking up on this idea of how hard is this to imitate. In Porter's article, What is Strategy? He really said everybody can do operational effectiveness equally well. I don't think that assumption is valid. If you think about the cost leadership strategy, it's built around operational effectiveness. In other words, you have a good position, you build an on-par product, but then you figure out ways to take cost out. That is the essence of operational effectiveness. And I don't think it's fair or accurate to say that everybody does it equally well. And to go back to pick on CC's and Little Caesars, you can make the case that in taking cost out of their product, they took taste out of their product. They moved themselves to a clearly lower standard of pizza. Not that that's a mistake, that may be completely their position, but that would be an example of if they were trying to keep their pizza kind of on par, but they took that cost out, they didn't succeed. And so that's not equally, or that's not easy to do, and I don't think that all firms are equally capable of executing that. Some are, in fact, better at being efficient than others, which gets us to one of the big problems of the cost leadership model, which is if you become all about cost, you may drop your product down such that no one wants it. That is the number one danger, if you will, of a cost leadership strategy taken to extreme, is you fall off the industry standard product and suddenly nobody wants what you have. Let's go to the other end, and that would be the differentiation strategy. I think you're very familiar with the points of differentiation: prestige, due to the brand name, that would be the Izods and all of the clothing, the product features. Going to that, it could be customer service. And I want to use as my example of a differentiated company, one that I think does this extremely well, and that is Patagonia, the maker of very high-end outdoors gear, skiing, surfing, rock climbing, and the like. Keep in mind that the way you generate a competitive advantage through differentiation, and this is very important, the way you generate superior returns is you put something into the product that costs you this much, and you're able to charge this much. If you don't have a margin to that added value that doesn't exceed what somebody gets through a cost leadership strategy, excuse me, then you don't have a competitive advantage. It's as simple as that. So let's talk about Patagonia's products. And so let me go back to that. I pulled that cardigan off of their website. That cardigan costs $129. You can see that's not cheap for a cardigan. How does Patagonia make this work? How do they generate the trade-offs and the fit? Well, here are some of the trade-offs that Patagonia does. They make a big deal of how socially responsible they are. So they don't deal with the lowest cost manufacturers of their component parts. They have to move upscale to someone who has manufacturing processes that are compatible with their very eco-friendly image as a company. How about R&D? They make a big deal out of the fact that all of their employees extensively use their products and that they test their products. So you have a workforce that is outliving the active lifestyle at Patagonia's specific direction, and that means they're not in the office getting as much quote-unquote regular work done because they're out there spending so much time testing the product. They pay for it in distribution channels is another trade-off. I looked online and you can't find Patagonia in Walmart, no surprise there. You can't find them in Academy, not a huge surprise. In Wichita Falls, if you want a Patagonia product, there's one small boutique that carries Patagonia products, probably with a limited selection, and online. And online's a good place for you to buy goods as far as Patagonia is concerned because their profit margins are typically much higher when you buy directly from them online. So they make those trade-offs. And I think in the marketing area, I think the founder of this company is simply brilliant because he'll say, well, I'm not much of a businessman. He's a French or Canadian background, so he has a little bit of an accented voice. I'm no businessman, I just know a great product. I think he's a brilliant businessman, and I think he knows a shtick that sells very well. He talks about not being a businessman and Patagonia not being your typical business, which reinforces that point of differentiation, which allows them to charge these extremely high prices and I think it makes them a very successful company. So how do you get it wrong with differentiation? Well, actually, let me talk first about what are the benefits. If we go back to Porter's 5 forces, when you have differentiation, you know that A, that affects the power of the buyer. It also affects the threat of new entrants. Your differentiation may make you a little bit more dependent on your suppliers, so that may be problematic, but then again, they may get some follow-on prestige by being your supplier. As far as substitute products go, the fact that you do have differentiation makes it hard for that substitute product to come up to a similar level of value to the customer. And because there's differentiation within your competitors, that gives you the ability to charge different price points. And if you look at Porter's model, Porter's a huge believer of differentiation within an industry. He supports having very differentiated positions for competitors so that they're not fighting tooth and nail over the various competitors. And obviously, to the extent that you have this huge upcharge, this gives you more flexibility in dealing with the 5 forces because your profit margins are already pretty fat. Now, how does this go wrong? Usually it goes wrong because you get the differentiation part wrong. You put stuff in the customers don't care about and are not willing to pay for, or you get overly enthused about your product and you charge too much from a price perspective. And in BSG, that's one of the mistakes that teams sometimes make, is they think I'm going to go to a very differentiated shoe and they try to raise their prices quite a bit, not really connected with how much their cost increase are going to be, and they see a rapid fall off in their sales because people are like, I like your shoes, just not going to pay that much money for them, sorry. So you can either not differentiate on the right things, over differentiate, overprice. That's how the differentiation strategy goes wrong. Or it kind of implicit in that you may get the differentiation part right. People love what you're doing, but you have failed the basic test in that you're not able to charge a lot more for that value added compared to what it costs you to generate that additional point of differentiation. Focus strategies, relatively self-evident, so I'm going to step quickly through this. There's all kinds of ways that you can focus. Geographic, go back to my pest control companies in Wichita Falls. There are a few national competitors, although they're usually done through franchises and inherently local, but they're mainly local. You can focus demographic, that has to do with your product positioning. Likewise, you can focus economically. That you can focus on rich people seems obvious, but you can also focus very effectively on low-income people. Today, finance companies and title companies in these tight times are doing great. I know some people that run finance companies, and I have to tell you, their profit margins are just really, really commendable because the people have no alternative. Likewise, if you look insurance companies, some auto insurance companies focus on providing the state minimum coverage. That's a focus strategy, and they figure out how to do that very well. What are the risks involved in a focus strategy? You can focus on a niche that's too small, that's not profitable. You can have people come into your niche. Your niche, the uniqueness of the niche can go away such that what you offer isn't worth it to people anymore. But I think almost the biggest danger in the focus strategy, if you get it right, is the temptation to expand. I'm so successful here, I want to expand to other people. An example of a company that started with a great focus strategy, and I think has been very successful, is Southwest Airlines. They were short haul, avoiding major markets in the beginning. And since then, they extended the length of their flights. They've entered into the major national airports such as LaGuardia, Dulles, Los Angeles, Denver. These are airports they avoided for many years because the turnaround times were too slow. And now they're even going internationally. So they've done it well, but I think you could find a lot of focus companies that had a focus strategy that lost that focus and didn't do well. Next up, we're going to move to the analog perspective and see how that works. Listen to the bell. I'm done.